So we did organize the variables. Now let's just organize our blueprint code. So for example, in here, you can see when we press the right mouse button, that is aim event, it will use a timeline to change the position of camera from unaimed to aimed, right? So now what we can do about that? First of all, you can see on the left side there is a function and there is a macros, and there is another thing that is called collapse node. And if we hold left mouse button and select all the node that we want to collapse like this by holding left control, and with left click on our mouse we can right click on one of them and collapse the nodes, and it will just create one node for us, and we can give it a name. For example, I want to call it reposition camera to aim location. Okay, so this node do that, and if you double click on it, then you can see everything is the same, but there is an input and there is an output. Okay, right now it doesn't do a great job for us, and if we go to our event graph again, you can see from this pressed it go play from start, and there is a track from here to here. Okay, it's not doing a great job for us, it's just confusing us more. But if we compile this and run our game again, it work beautifully, it work as before, but it's not self-explanatory in here. So what these input and what is this output, what it means? On this input we can have, if we click on this input, it will show us the input and output. You can see the inputs and output, and in here it decide that because we right click and tell it to collapse node, it automatically decide that we need the execute pin of type of execute, and we need a play from start of type of execute again. And on output you can see it decide that we need an update of type of execute. Okay, so I want to fix this because it's not self-explanatory. If I again go to event graph and look at this one, because both of them are the same. First thing that we notice with this release, for example, it will play from start this timeline. So we need just one execution pin. So if we go here in input, if we click on input or output, in input in here, I don't need an execution pin. Okay, I don't need this execute pin, so let's just disable that, delete that. Okay, so in this code we need just play from start, nothing more, right? We are doing nothing more. And after this update we want to update our set relative location, not put it in output. So what we can do, we can just connect this update to this execution pin of the set relative location. So what about this update? What we can do about that? If we go back to event graph, you can see on this bottom one that we didn't collapse, you can see update connected to the set relative location, and after that there is execution pin. And if we want to execute something after this, we can use it, right? So it's always good idea to give it a output execution pin. So we need an execution pin after this because maybe we want to do something after this, right? So again, let's just double click on here and I can just connect the execution pin of this set relative location to this output. And if we click on the output, we can change the name to execution, okay, or whatever, exec. The type does matter, execution pin. So one thing more that we can use in here if we go to input, we can give these variables in the input, right? Like in input, we create the execution variable in here like this. We can add 2 more and change the variable type to vector, right? So both of them to vector. One of them is for unaimed, okay, and one of them is for aimed. And note there is 2 input in here that we can, let me change the name to unaimed. And now we have 2 input in here that instead of this unaimed and aimed, we can use it. And if we want to change these two, we can always do it and it will be easier. We don't need to go through these collapse nodes. So we can just delete these two and connect these unaimed and these aimed to here and here, okay? No, if we go back to event graph, you can see in here we have unaimed and aimed input in here that we can use over unaimed and unaimed in here and aimed one in here, okay? So no, let's just delete this track by holding Alt and clicking here. And no, it is more efficient, right? It's more beautiful to do it like this. Another thing that we can do, we can again go to this collapse node in here, and instead of calling these unaimed and aimed, we can just call it location start, okay? And in the next one, we can tell it location end. So location start and location end, and it will automatically change our camera to that position, right? So now if we compile and run our game, again it will work fine. Now let me change another thing. If we go back to event graph again, what we can do in here, we can again use this collapse node, Control C to copy it and Control V to paste it here, for example, and use it again for release this time, right? And this time we want to use the aimed to unaimed, right? And after that, it should be okay. So if we delete all of these, it should work fine, right? So like this, the location start, the location end. We want to go from aimed to unaimed when we release the right mouse button. So let's just compile and run. And if we hold right mouse button, you can see again it works fine. Everything is working fine. We did manage all of those code to just these 2 nodes, and whenever we want we can change these 2 variables. So we create some modular way of creating some nodes to use it everywhere that we want.